Good afternoon, Hattiesburg. It's Toby Barker. Thanks for joining us for this Monday afternoon briefing on COVID-19. This will be a little bit shorter than some of our most recent days, but we're glad you're here. Hope you had a great weekend. We'll be going over our testing results for today. We'll talk about some things specific to the ICU utilization. We'll talk about some testing opportunities and how that affects how we reopen, and as well our regular active coverage. So as of today, our system-wide numbers, we have had 9,599 total tests from all of our healthcare organizations. 1,074 have come back positive. This is since mid-March. Of course, those are not all in Forest and Lamar counties, and obviously they're not all active cases. We have 8,194 tests that are negative, and we have 331 that are currently pending. We have 36 people in the hospital between Merit Health Wesley and Forest General Hospital who are COVID positive. That's a couple under what we've had over the last 14 days, which is a positive sign. However, we have more folks in the ICU than we've had to this point. 24 people in the ICU who are positive for COVID. That's about 6 over our 14-day average. This is how we've kind of been since the first part of April. Since around the third week of April, we've kind of stayed between that 35 and 41 in terms of total hospitalizations. We have seen our ICU admissions creep up, again, not to a number that's overwhelming our system right now, but we still would like to see that number kind of trend downward. However, as we ask questions about who's in the ICU, we're seeing that the average age of the population as of today is 67.21 years old. There are people who are 90 years old in the ICU, and there are people who are 29 in the ICU. We have a 29 and a 30-year-old right now that are in the ICU. Not all of these folks are coming from Forest and Lamar counties. Those 24 cases are spread out among 12 counties, and that's a positive sign. And then we're not seeing so many in our community get to that acute status. However, the danger in that is that Hattiesburg is the hub, not only for commerce but also for healthcare. And so as different counties send us their sickest patients, that affects capacity for us to take care of our folks here in Forest and Lamar counties, which is why we must be smart in how we go about this going forward. In terms of our overall infection rates, 442 folks in Forest County have tested positive. That's an increase of 11. Today, Lamar County stayed flat at 175, which takes our total infections since this began to 617. Our 5-day average, we had a tough end of the week last week. We had 21 new cases on Thursday, 23 cases on Friday. We added 36 new cases on Saturday, dropped to 15 cases yesterday, and down to 11 today. However, that all still affects our 5-day average, which is starting obviously with the 36th day on Saturday, has trended significantly up. This is important because when we think about 14-day window that we talked about on Friday, how many of these are in the last 14 days, which would typically make those active cases, versus the ones that are outside 14 days, which typically represents those who have recovered or survived if they have not passed away. And so right now, as I noted yesterday, we have more people who are likely sick in our community than we ever have. And so the caveat for that, however, is that a lot of these are in long-term care facilities. A lot of these are in households that already had one person who was sick. And so there's something for us to be mindful of community spread. However, we also know that this thing is going to happen as people start to get around one another, and that guides us as we reopen, because our goals ultimately are protect vulnerable populations, people over the age of 60, people with underlying health conditions. That's why we wear masks, not only for ourselves, but also to protect those who are vulnerable around us in case we are carrying this asymptomatically. We also want to prevent overrun of the healthcare system by slowing the spread. That's why we watch the ICU utilization number, while we watch hospitalizations, to make sure that if you need healthcare or if a loved one needs healthcare, there's sufficient capacity at both Merit Health Wesley and Forest General to take care of folks. And finally, as we reopen, we want to prioritize public health while giving our private sector the space to operate creatively. 4 factors as we reopen that we will always consider: the widespread availability of testing to make sure that we can diagnose people early, get them quarantined if they're positive, and get them into effective case management. We want to make sure that folks continue to wear masks as they get out and interact with each other. We want to watch our own data. And finally, listening to all voices: healthcare, business, people out in the community, making sure that all those voices are heard and guide us as we move forward. Testing opportunities. Last week we had a drive-through testing opportunity in Palmer's Crossing. We also had one at Vernon Damer Park, which is why you saw more people being tested, and probably some of those cases that we now know are positive came because more folks were tested. So, for example, at Palmer's Crossing last week, when Simrai did their drive-through testing, 80 people were tested. 11 of those came back positive. You have another opportunity this week to be tested if you're in East Forest County or if you're in Perry County. Tomorrow at the Beaumont Family Health Center in Beaumont, there will be drive-through testing. There will also be drive-through testing in Seminary and Covington County. So if you live in Sumrall or Raw Springs and you want to drive up and get a free test, you can do so at the Seminary Family Health Center. We also today had our first day with our ongoing testing site at the C.E. Roy Community Center. That opened at 8 a.m. this morning, and by 1 o'clock, our testing capacity at that center was 70, and we had done 70 tests by 1 o'clock, and we had to close early. On Wednesday, we hope to increase our testing capacity to 90 so that we can continue serving folks. But I do appreciate all of you who came out and were tested today. Again, getting people early, identifying them, getting them quarantined is key in us slowing the spread and keeping this thing contained. And so that'll be open Monday, Wednesday, Friday on an ongoing basis from 8 to 4. And again, we're going to increase capacity on Wednesday. Today is our first day under the new Executive Order 2020-8. Our nail salons are now open, of course, subject to the very strict sanitization guidelines put forward by Governor Reeves. Same thing with tattoo parlors. And then finally, our restaurants are open for indoor and outdoor dining at 50% of total capacity. And again, they have to follow all of those cleaning standards, all of the screening questions that they have to ask customers, all of those things they are subject to going forward. And this is where I also mentioned the idea of personal responsibility. Just because these things are open doesn't mean you should go do them. You need to make sure that you know your own health conditions, whether you might be adversely affected by catching COVID. You need to know the health conditions of your family that you live with and the people around you or you work with, because you don't want to unknowingly spread that to someone if you are asymptomatic. You just want to make sure that you're making good decisions, and because that's going to guide us as we go forward, and we want to make sure that we keep as many people healthy and keep them okay. Our act of courage today comes from Abigail Allen and her daughter Frances, as well as Emily Gillespie, who works in our Parks and Rec department. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. since this began almost 2 months ago, they have been doing arts programming via Facebook on the Parks and Rec Facebook site for families and children. And it is always a fun time, and they are so engaging, and they do so much in terms of crafts and just if you're at home with kids and kind of arrive at a loss of what to do after a while, I would encourage you to check out our Arts Hour on the Parks and Rec Facebook page, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 a.m. And we certainly appreciate Abigail Allen giving of her time to make this happen and bring joy and laughter into everyone's life. And as we go and start this week, remember to wash your hands, take care of yourself physically and mentally, wear a mask if you go out in public, do only what is essential, and remember that you are safer at home. Have a great week.